Hi, I'm Carrie Fields. I'm a SoulCollage facilitator, and I wanted to make this video to give you a really brief and succinct introduction to what is SoulCollage. I offer workshops and groups using this method, and I do recommend that when getting started with it that you try to take an introductory workshop either with me or another facilitator so that you can get a more in-depth experience and instruction on the process. However, if you want to go ahead and get started now, or if you'd like to come to one of my other groups or workshops in the meantime, I thought it would be helpful to give you just a really quick crash course with the nuts and bolts that you might need to get started. Soul collage is a method of intuitive collage that can be practiced individually or in groups. It was developed by psychotherapist Sina Frost in the early 2000s. Sina also wrote a book about the method called Soul Collage Evolving, which I recommend as a resource. You can also visit soulcollage.com for more information. So you're probably wondering how soul collage is different than just making collage, or different than a practice like vision boarding. And in fact, it is a very distinct practice. In soul collage, we create a deck of collage cards, something like a personal oracle deck, using symbols and images that are significant to you and that you can actually read for receiving personal guidance. So the soul collage process involves intuition. We take the raw materials of all the images and photos that we have to work with, and we recombine them in an intuitive way to create something new. So when practicing soul collage, we try to drop in and connect to right brain consciousness, creating images and using images that we feel intuitively drawn to, without too much planning, and also asking the thinking mind to step back and not interfere too much while we're creating. And this brings in this element of surprise. So sometimes we know in advance what we want on our card, but we still try to create from that place of intuition. Once cards are made, we then reflect on the cards and listen to what they have to say. These cards represent parts of ourselves or important aspects of our life experience, including community, values, beliefs, archetypes, and so on. I tend to think of it as something like creating this visual map of our inner life. And when you practice soul collage, you'll often be very surprised at what emerges. The insights and messages that you receive from working with your cards can be surprisingly powerful. So once you've created a collage card of any sort and you finish making your card, you can do a short writing exercise to see what information the card wants to bring forward. To do this, we use the prompt, I am one who. You can also use the prompt, my gift to you is. So when you're writing this, allow yourself to embody the energy of the card and answer these prompts in the first person, speaking out from the voice of the card. This exercise will begin to make more sense if you get to experience it for yourself. So when starting out with soul collage, you don't need to worry too much about all the nitty-gritty details. You can just play with it, see what comes up. Similar to working with things like dreams or active imagination, this is a process that actually helps us tap into the unconscious aspects of ourselves and connect to the inner self, which we don't have easy access to through the rational mind. To paraphrase psychologist Carl Jung, whose work underlies this practice, the unconscious speaks to us in the language of imagery and symbol. So as you get more into this process, that will become more clear and more intuitive. You'll also learn about the 4 suits of the Soul Collage deck. These are the committee, the community, the council, and the companions. And I want to say first, don't worry too much if this part of the presentation doesn't stick. You don't really need all this information to get started, but I want to give you just a quick snapshot of the structure of the deck. The committee suit represents parts of you, aspects of your personality, roles you play, and things that belong to the psychological dimension of the self. For example, inner child cards might show up in the committee. Next, we have the community. Community cards can be friends, family, pets, role models, ancestors, other living beings, and even places or groups that are important in your life. We also have council cards, which are like archetypes or big picture energies This can include mythical figures, symbols, things that have broad collective significance. So, for example, I have cards in my deck for things like birth and death, big energies that affect us collectively. And finally, we have the companion suit, where we create one card for each of the 7 chakras, each represented by an animal. There are also 3 transpersonal cards that can represent spiritual energies. Now that's all I'm going to say right now about the 4 suits. And you don't need to worry too much about categorizing your cards if you're just getting started. But if you'd like to know a little more about the 4 suits, I'm going to create a separate video that will go more in depth on that. So finally, I'd like to just mention a few of the guiding principles of the SoulCollage process and community, and go over what materials you'll need to get started. I recommend taking a look at this document, Principles of SoulCollage, which you can find on the SoulCollage website, or I could send it to you. I'm going to mention a few that I think are most important to know. SoulCollage is a creative collage process for self-discovery, self-acceptance, and personal empowerment. It's for embracing one's intuition and unique creativity, and promoting inclusive, diverse, cooperative community for mutual encouragement. SoulCollage cards are for personal use only. That means we don't share them publicly unless we're just sharing our personal process. We also don't copy, sell, barter, or trade. You can make a copy of your card for backup in case of loss, but otherwise we don't endorse copying your cards. We also try to respect copyright law and the ownership or artistic license of the images. So these images were created by photographers or artists, and we try to respect their license of these images. So it's fine to use them in your personal process, but that's why we're careful about reproducing them. Finally, no one can read SoulCollage cards for another person, only for oneself, because this is really a process about listening to our own intuition. And we can still be supportive and interested and witness other people's process without doing interpretation for them. And finally, SoulCollage is a trademarked process, so you're absolutely welcome to use it and informally share it with the people in your life. However, if you want to teach a workshop on SoulCollage and use the SoulCollage trademarked name, you have to go through a facilitator training. And that way we keep the process consistent across the board and make sure everybody's operating based on these principles. So finally, the last bit, I'm going to share a little bit about the materials that you're going to need to get started. So you can usually do SoulCollage using materials you probably have laying around the house. So first you need a backing for your card. Most people do a size of 5 inches by 8 inches. So that's about the size. And you can use mat board. Actually, on the SoulCollage website, soulcollage.com, there's a link where you could purchase some of these materials as well. I actually like to just cut up cardboard from my recycling, so maybe old cereal boxes, things that I can reuse in that 5 by 8 size. You can use cardstock also, although that can be a little flimsy. You want something that's pretty solid. You'll need scissors. I recommend having scissors of different sizes if you can, but whatever you have around the house is good. I like having some precision cutting scissors, so I use these little sewing scissors. I also have an X-Acto knife that occasionally comes in handy. Also glue sticks. I use these little Elmer's glue sticks, or something like this. Works pretty well. It's hard to find the perfect glue, but that tends to be what works for me. And then of course you need collage materials. So magazines, old calendars, photos you've printed or copied, cut paper, whatever you can find really. And just I'd recommend just starting with whatever you have laying around and seeing what comes out of that. And then as you go, you can always gather up old magazines. A lot of times you can get them at the library or thrift stores, things like that. Okay, so that's all I have to share today. I hope this video has been helpful. If you have questions, if you want to know more, if you'd like to attend my monthly SoulCollage meetup group online, you can email me at carrie@innerlandscapeshealing.com or check out my website at innerlandscapeshealing.com. Thank you for watching.